What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to All Sports Talk with Peter Burtonette, bringing you a recap of the NFL Conference Championship action. Going to start out with the first game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, because that one was simply a dominant performance by the Eagles defense, especially. Obviously, the 49ers had to deal with the injury to Brock Purdy, dealt with, at this point, their fourth string quarterback in the game. But even with that, the Eagles' defense was completely dominant in that game. Hassan Reddick was especially dominant, recorded a couple of sacks, forced a fumble. Fourth-string quarterback Josh Johnson, who has bounced around the NFL, been on 13 different teams, obviously had to step up in a high-pressure situation. The Niners were able to put together one drive. Christian McCaffrey was really able to get it done on the offensive end, picked up a couple of big runs, made a couple of catches, and ran in a touchdown to tie the game at 7. But from there, the Eagles kind of ran away with the game. Purdy was able to return late in the game, but wasn't really able to do what he's been doing in this end of regular season and postseason run for the Niners. But overall, a pretty comfortable win for the Eagles, and their defense is especially dangerous, and their offense didn't really have to get as much done because they had a couple of short fields and just really limited the Niners to a lot of punts and had pretty good field position throughout the game. But the Eagles' offense is certainly not a unit to overshadow, and when I dive into a Super Bowl preview, I'll kind of go over more of those guys, but obviously they can get it done on the ground, especially with Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts running it as a quarterback, Boston Scott also getting carries here and there. So the Eagles' offensive unit certainly is a high-level unit as well, and they are a very serious contender against the other team making the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. What a win for the Chiefs at Arrowhead over the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know looking at Twitter, and I'm sure the talking points in at least the next couple of days on all the sports stations are going to be about the officiating. Whether some of the calls were questionable or not, I'm not here to argue about. I thought, both teams had to still perform out there on the field. And yeah, some people are going to yell and scream saying that the Bengals were cheated in this one. But really, from the outset, the question for the Bengals was going to be how they handled the pass rush of the Kansas City Chiefs, especially Chris Jones, candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. The game started out really rough for the Bengals, for Joe Burrow at quarterback. 4 sacks in the first quarter. It seemed like probably even all of those were within around maybe the first half of the first quarter. But after that, the Bengals offensive line, which has kind of been thrown together and has, developed as a group and strengthened in these playoffs, was able to settle into the game. They did a lot better against Jones and against Frank Clark. And the Bengals were able to fight back from a little bit of an early deficit. T. Higgins made a great touchdown catch on a 27-yard pass that was perfectly pinpoint accuracy by Joe Burrow that got Higgins kind of right in between and above a couple of Kansas City defenders, and that tied the game at 13 after the extra point in around the early midway point of the third quarter. From there, the Chiefs, they got a lot of production throughout the night by Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the veteran former Green Bay Packers wide receiver, really stepped up for the Chiefs with both Mecole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster knocked out of the game pretty early. The two of them combined for only 3 receptions, all in the early stages of the game. And so Valdes-Scantling really stepped up. Obviously, Travis Kelce, he had one of the other touchdown receptions for the Chiefs.
Ooh, Burrow had my ass! Woo! It's Mahomes' house!
And the offense certainly didn't put together an amazing game. Both defenses stepped up, obviously, as evidenced by the score. But where things really mattered, and obviously in a 23-20 final, this is when they're going to matter, was in crunch time. The Bengals were able to tie the game at 20 with a Samaje Perine touchdown rush. And from there, over the rest of the fourth quarter. That touchdown was early in the fourth quarter. Neither team could really grab a foothold on offense. Both defenses were making the plays needed to force punts. Joe Burrow also threw a couple of interceptions, but overall he did put together a pretty good game. The Cincinnati Bengals quarterback finished 26 for 41 with 270 yards and a touchdown to go with those 2 picks. But when the game really was settled, it came down once again to one play. And again, aside from the first quarter and this play, the Bengals O-line, really came together. They got comfortable in the game and were able to limit, but they still ended up giving up 5 sacks, and the 5th one was probably the biggest one of the game. Chris Jones got through, sacked Joe Burrow to force 4th down with just under I think a minute left at this point. And so the Chiefs, with the explosive offense that they have, even with Patrick Mahomes obviously being limited in this game, they had enough time, I think 39 seconds when they had the ball punted to them. And what really set them up initially was a big return by Sky Moore. Moore returned the ball 29 yards to the Kansas City 47. And from there, the Bengals defense did a pretty good job of limiting the movement. Joseph Osai made a big play. He was, as mentioned on the CBS broadcast, having a big game. But then, you got to feel for him because not only of the game that he had, but for how decisive this play was. He made a young player mistake. He's in his second year out of Texas. Had a play where Patrick Mahomes was running toward the sideline, and adrenaline can be the only way to describe what took over there for Mahomes. To be able to run on that high ankle sprain and be able to pick up some yards, it would have set up about a 55 or so yard field goal, but a late push. And it certainly wasn't a hard hit or anything like that. There wasn't any malice behind the hit or anything like that. But simply kind of an arm extension by Osai with Mahomes clearly out of bounds. And so 15 yards are tacked on. And then Harrison Butker nails a 45-yard field goal to win the game for the Kansas City Chiefs and send them to the Super Bowl. And so definitely a big result for the Chiefs. The Bengals have been their kryptonite, their Achilles heel over the last couple of seasons. They're finally able to get back over that hump into the Super Bowl, and it sets up a very interesting matchup. There's a couple of main storylines that stand out in terms of individual players. It's individual players or coaches. It's obviously the Kelce Bowl. You've got Jason Kelce, the Eagles' longtime center, anchoring a very, very good offensive line. And then you've got Travis Kelce for the Kansas City Chiefs, the explosive, energetic, both of them are, but explosive, energetic tight end who puts up incredible numbers in terms of receiving for the Chiefs. So that's one storyline here as we look ahead in kind of the early stages. And then the other one is kind of a funny one that Andy Reid, the lovable Kansas City Chiefs head coach, is going up against a team that he won a Super Bowl with. So it's an Andy Reid Super Bowl as well. But you do got to feel for the Bengals. They were doubted the whole season, and even people kind of calling last year maybe a fluke or whatever. But they stepped up. They put together some great wins. That win over the Bills showed that when people would probably have expected the Bills to be that team that's going to be competing with the Chiefs, going back and forth, winning the AFC crown, it sure looks like, as of right now, the Bengals are going to be that team to stay. And as mentioned on the broadcast, and as will be talked about, even in the next couple of days, and especially over the offseason, is that the AFC is going to be down like it often was between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning to Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and the Chiefs and the Bengals, which should be exciting to watch. And I certainly think the Bills are with a few improvements and with Josh Allen cleaning up some of the mistakes that he's prone to make, they could certainly be in that discussion. But the AFC is going to run through Cincinnati and Kansas City for likely the next decade. But that's a wrap on the conference championship weekend. In probably maybe about a week or so, I'll be putting together and publishing a video really breaking down position by position the Super Bowl. It's nice to have 2 weeks until the Super Bowl to put something solid together for you guys to watch. But one of the games was not highly competitive. Obviously, injuries played a big role in that as the Eagles breezed past the 49ers, and then a great competitive, hard-nosed defensive battle between two teams that were trying to get back to the Super Bowl after recently making it. Obviously, Bengals last year and Chiefs a couple of years. So a great second game, great displays of dominance by the Eagles, both offensively and defensively, and a pretty good way to close out the last of the Sundays where we get to watch at least 2 football games. We'll have one more left. Definitely looking forward to that Super Bowl. Won't be giving my prediction quite yet. I'm saving that for the later video. But early inkling, the Eagles look pretty dang tough to beat. But that's it for this episode of All Sports Talk. If you've enjoyed, please leave a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this. And I also wanted to shout out here too. Thank you everybody who has been a part of the journey so far. We just hit that first small milestone of 100 subscribers. So thank you each and every one of you who has joined. And even for the people who have watched and maybe not subscribed yet, thank you also for being a part of it as I continue to try to grow and to provide just the best sports content of a variety of sports, not just limiting myself to a couple of sports. But again, that's it for this episode of All Sports Talk. I'm Peter Burnett. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.